Kendra Ruczak from CGW. I'm here at View Conference 2025 with...
My name's Michael Ralla. I'm the VFX Supervisor on Ryan Coogler's Sinners.
Thank you so much for being here today. So excited to dive into your work on the film.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you in beautiful Turin, Italy.
Well, first thing, I actually saw a panel at SIGGRAPH where you mentioned that you like to call the studios you work with visual effects partners instead of vendors. If you could talk a little bit about that and how you kind of see visual effects evolving and relationships between companies like that.
That's a good one, and I'm glad you're asking this question because it's very dear to my heart. You know, the way I describe it, whenever we're getting on a call with a company that we haven't worked with before, that's usually one of the first things that my VFX producer James Alexander and I say. Don't call yourself a vendor. That terminology or that expression is ingrained into people's minds these days. Like it's you know, a lot of companies call themselves a vendor. It's standard verbiage, even though I don't really disagree with it. You know, and like the way I usually explain it to them is like, look, a vendor is more like someone who sells greasy hot dogs that were fried in stale, you know, oil at like a dirty corner of the street, and that's just not what we do. That's also not the people who we necessarily want to work with, because, you know, we don't just want to send you a shot package and then you do the work and, you know, like essentially let us know when you're done with it, and then we'll send you a bunch of feedback and send you, you know, and have you rework it all again. That's just not how I like to operate, and that's also not how I would have wanted to work when I was on the quote-unquote vendor side, when I was working for a VFX studio. Because truth be told, you know, everyone who ends up in the film industry usually sees themselves as a creative person. You know, like if we were in it for the money, we'd be bankers, quite frankly. But you know, we love what we do, and I think we kind of need to honor that as well. And you know, I want people to feel included. And in my opinion, it's really hard to feel included if you're a vendor. So if, you know, like what we like to do, and we did that on Sinners, we like to engage everyone early in pre-production. We share the script with them. We share like anything that we have. And then we keep that going all the way through production and post-production. You know, we really want to work with people who we know, who we trust. I've worked all around the globe at like almost every big company. Like I spent a good amount of my 20s and 30s in Australia. I worked in London. I worked in Canada. And then ended up in Los Angeles and San Francisco. I met a lot of people. A lot of those people have grown up, and some of them have gone back to their home countries, and they've set up their own studios. And you know, I have a personal relationship with quite a few of them. So those are usually the people who we address first, because I have somebody who I know, and you know, who's very often a lot of those people have been sitting in the trenches with me, shoulder to shoulder, and you know, we've been figuring things out before, and now we're doing it no longer shoulder by shoulder, but you know, sometimes there's an ocean in between, but we still know that we've got each other's back. And you know, and that's one thing that's also really important. You know, it's easy to fuck over a vendor. We don't want to do that, because like we want to keep working with people, and you know, we want people to stick around and just respect them, because I personally find it really cool if you give people a task and then they add all their creative energy and input and send something back that by far exceeds your expectation. That's what we want. And I think, you know, if you have that kind of collaboration, creative partner is just a much more suitable and fitting description of the word.
I just love the idea of this partnership. I feel like you said, it's more of a long-lasting way of working with people and a better relationship overall. I think it's so important, the words that we choose to use in this industry.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that you like it, because it really means a lot to us, and we've been actively trying to change it, at least, you know, as far as we can.
Exactly. Who were some of those partners that you worked with this time around?
Oh, so we worked with 8 partners on Sinners. Hopefully I can remember them all right now. Yeah, I'm still a little bit jet lagged, but our friends at Storm Studios in Norway. You know, like a guy called Espen Nordahl. I've known him for a long time. I've known Thomas from Digital Domain in working on like Transformers in 2010. He's the head of the studio, and they're just phenomenal. What I like about them is a lot of mainland European companies actually have their own functional local film industry that produces films for the local market. You know, like Norway, they make Norwegian films. Same for Sweden, same for Denmark, same for France, Germany, Spain. Some of them have really, really good films that, you know, come out of those countries. What that also means is the local VFX companies usually also cater to the local market, and they're used to dealing with the budgets, which aren't all that big.
Yeah.
So they have an ability to be really nimble, and that absolutely applies to Storm. You know, the same goes for our partners at Rising Sun. Guido Walters is a good friend of mine. I've worked with him at Logic in 2008 and 9. And, you know, so like he's just a phone call away, or sometimes just a text. And that's one thing that I like. Like, I like to be able to just text my VFX subs and just rope them in, let them in on like all the issues and problems and challenges that we're having, so that, you know, we can share how we're going to solve all that stuff, because quite frankly, it often is really fun. And you know, it's creative solutions that we're looking for in that moment. And you know, I don't want to like just pre-chew all of that for them. I want them to be part of that whole process. Then we had ILM. I worked for ILM myself in San Francisco. Those were some of the most formative years, quite frankly, in my career. You know, like working for John Knoll on Pacific Rim, and you know, like he had that mindset of being all inclusive. You know, like he wanted people to be present in dailies, even if it wasn't their turn or their shot, because there was this learning by osmosis attitude where, you know, like everyone should just see what's happening, and not just like in their own shot or in their own sequence, but like with the film, because it may help them understand things better, and it sets a theme, and you know, it may, working within that theme, could potentially answer a lot of questions that people may have down the line. His thing was always like, look, everyone has a voice. Everyone should feel encouraged to speak up if they feel like they have something positive to contribute that makes the shot better. That's the ILM way of doing things, and I always liked that. So we had them. We had to have them on this film, and you know, like our supervisor was Nick Marshall, fantastic guy. I really wanted him to feel encouraged to do whatever it took, and he went above and beyond. You know, I mean, like at some point, he ended up shooting blood elements on his balcony, and he felt like it was cheating, and I was so like, no man, this is exactly what I'm looking for.
With the snake?
Yes,
yeah.
you know, for the snake, and you know, he's just such a genuine filmmaker. It was really cool to have him on this project. And then, you know, our friends at Light in France coming on board very last minute, doing some really complicated work. And then we had Base Effects in China, who I worked with before on Black Panther. Oh yeah, we had our friends, new friends at Outpost in London. Ian, a fantastic, really, really caring VFX supervisor. We had a great experience working with him. And then we had a fantastic in-house team of people who we've worked with before, who we personally know, and you know, who we basically threw everything that we still needed to have done.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. It's so great to hear about all the partners you worked with and your process for the film.
If we were doing this for the money, I'd be a banker. Like that's, so I want to have fun when we're working on a film. And I think that, you know, like, that directly translates into the final picture. Like if everyone's miserable and it's just like horrible to work on a project, then it's unlikely that that film's going to be good, in my opinion. And you know, this in particular actually goes for Sinners, because that film has heart and soul. And you know, everyone put their heart and soul into it, and in my opinion, you can feel it. And that was one of the interesting things that I realized as we were shooting the film on film, which, as a German engineer, you know, like, who was pushing for like making things better and getting the best digital, most perfect capture and image quality that you can imagine, and always striving for like making it better and more perfect and all of that. That was quite the adjustment at the beginning. I was just like, why are we doing this? This is so backwards. This is so difficult. This is so not practical and so imperfect. Until I realized it's exactly that. It's the imperfections that we're looking for, because that's what makes it human. And that's the one thing that film captures that digital doesn't. It's like a vibe that's outside of the frame. And it's still hard for me to understand, because you can't quantify it. And I'm like, I sound like some esoteric idiot saying this. And again, like really difficult for me as a German engineer. But like then when I see it screened as a film projection, like all of a sudden I'm like, oh, holy shit, this is working. People like it. You know, like all that energy that went into making it is coming out of the picture when people watch it. And it's a pleasure to watch the film.
And I love your collaboration with Autumn Durrell and Arkapan, how you really work closely with her to be able to preserve how she wanted to have it shot in her large format photography.
Yes, I mean, Autumn is probably the most important collaborator in this whole process, or the DP in general. She's got a very, very strong and particular style. And I remember how excited I was when I heard that she was going to shoot Black Panther. That was one of the reasons why I really wanted to work on that film, because I was like, wow, she's going to turn the Marvel look into something completely different. And she's going to go into places that no one had dared to go to before. And, she did. When she told me about this project and what she had in mind, there was going to be large format film, I was excited. And but I also knew it was going to be incredibly hard. And it was. Because before we were dealing with digital capture, which is pretty perfect these days, high dynamic range, low noise, and a really high resolution, and going to something like film, which is none of that. And in addition to like really characterful lenses, that was it almost sounded like a nightmare scenario for VFX. But at the same time, once we broke it all down, once we figured out what the format does, what the lenses do, and then especially what she's doing with it and what her creative intent was and what she was doing with lighting and framing, then all of a sudden, it just like was almost self-explanatory. And then one thing that I really want to point out, because it was really, really important to me on this project, is preserving creative intent from pre-production through production all the way into post-production. Because very often once we go into post, it's just the VFX department, editorial, sound, and the director. But a lot of the other people are gone at that point, and even though they've been very strong collaborators all the way through, like the last shoot day. On Sinners, we really try to still have the input from the production designer. We really try to still have the input, especially from the special effects makeup designer, Mike Fontaine. And we really try to also have Ruth Corder's wardrobe whenever we needed to do fixes or whatever it was. And then, I remember at some point during Black Panther, Autumn asked me, why are you guys making shit up? Like, why does none of the CG work that you do look like I shot it? It doesn't look like my lenses, doesn't look like I lit it, doesn't look like anything like the rest of the movie. So on this one, I said, okay, I don't want to be told why you're making shit up. You're going to come with me. We will light these shots together. We'll frame all CG shots together. And there's quite a few all CG shots in this film that you don't necessarily recognize. And I think they are seamless and blend in because they were not just made up by someone who knows how to light. It was actually, directed by the person who did all the on-set lighting and who shot the film. And I think having that creative intent really made all the difference. That's why a lot of people ask me, what did you do in this film? It doesn't seem to have all that many VFX.
It's invisible.
Are you kidding me? It's more than 1,000 shots, so
that's shocking to people to hear that.
Yes, but at the same time, that's what we needed to be. It's not a visual effects film. It needed to be invisible. We always wanted to add, never take away, but it had to be perfectly seamless within the context of the film. And the only way to achieve that is by having the input of all the collaborators that created the rest of the film, you know, and we were trying to keep all of that collaboration going until we were done.
You absolutely achieved that. And so
Thank you.
it's an incredible film. And thank you so much for taking the time to dive into that and to talk about your philosophy about visual effects too. I really enjoyed hearing about the partner concept.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, like, can't do it by yourself or all alone. It's a team effort, you know. Again, there's no I in team.
Yeah.
Like, we're doing all of this together, and it's really important that every member of the team feels valued. And you know, we encourage all the supervisors to also like let that trickle through to their folks who are, you know, behind the boxes.
Absolutely. Thanks again. I really appreciate it. And make sure you check out the rest of our videos from View Conference 2025.